The morning mist clung to the cemetery like a ghost unwilling to let go. 10-year-old Eli tightened his grip on the wilted daisies in his hand, Lily's favorite. Every Sunday for the past 2 years, rain or shine, he had come here, kneeling before the cold marble stone that bore his sister's name, Lily Carter. Beloved daughter and sister. Taken too soon. The words never failed to carve a fresh wound in his heart. Today, though, something felt different. As he placed the flowers on the grave, his fingers brushed against the soil. Loose, uneven, as if recently disturbed. A frown creased his forehead. Who would dig near Lily's grave? Before he could dwell on it, a sharp rustle came from behind. Eli spun around, but there was nothing except the swaying branches of an old oak tree. That evening, as he trudged back home, an envelope lay on his doorstep. No stamp, no return address, just 3 words scrawled in delicate cursive. My dearest, Lily. His breath hitched. That was his sister's handwriting. Hands trembling, he tore it open. Inside was a faded photograph of Lily, her smile bright, her eyes alive. But that wasn't possible. The note beneath it was worse. If you're reading, this, Eli, they lied. I'm not where they say I am. The date at the bottom? 1 week after Lily's funeral. Eli's world tilted. If the letter was real, then what, or who, was buried in his sister's grave? Eli's hands shook as he clutched the letter, the words burning into his mind like a secret too terrible to keep. The house was silent, his parents still asleep, unaware of the storm raging inside him. He read the note again, tracing the curves of Lily's handwriting, so familiar it made his chest ache. They lied. What did that mean? Who were they? And if Lily wasn't buried in that grave, where was she? The question spun in his head, dizzying and terrifying. He couldn't tell his parents. Not yet. His mother still cried herself to sleep. Some nights, and his father had locked away all of Lily's pictures, as if pretending she never existed could dull the pain. But Eli couldn't pretend. Not now. Before dawn the next morning, he crept back to the cemetery, his flashlight cutting, a frail beam through the thick fog. The fresh soil around Lily's grave was even more obvious now, disturbed in a way that wasn't natural. His pulse pounded as he knelt, fingers digging into the damp earth. Not deep, just enough to see. A glint of something metallic caught his eye. He brushed away the dirt, revealing a small, rusted locket, the one Lily had worn every single day until her death. His breath came in short, panicked gasps. This wasn't right. If she was buried here, the locket would have been with her, not just beneath the soil. A twig snapped behind him. Eli whirled around, heart hammering. The cemetery caretaker, Mr. Holloway, stood a few feet away, his face shadowed beneath the brim of his hat. The old man's expression wasn't angry, just sad. You shouldn't be digging here, boy, he murmured, voice rough like gravel. Some things are better left buried. Eli's throat tightened. But it's my sister, he whispered. Holloway's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Fear? Guilt? Before he shook his head. Go home, Eli. Before you find something you can't forget. The warning hung heavy in the air as the caretaker turned and disappeared into the mist, leaving Eli alone with the terrible truth taking root in his mind. Lily's grave was empty. The weight of the locket in Eli's pocket felt like a betrayal, proof that nothing about Lily's death had been real. He couldn't go home, not yet. Instead, he found himself standing outside the offices of the Blackwood Gazette, a small newspaper known for digging up stories no one else dared to touch. The journalist who worked there, Mara Voss, had once written about missing kids in the next town over, kids whose disappearances the police called runaway cases, but whose families swore had been taken. If anyone would believe him, it was her. The bell above the door jingled as he stepped inside. The scent of old paper and ink filling the air. Mara sat at a cluttered desk, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, fingers flying over a typewriter. She glanced up, eyebrows lifting when she saw him. A kid, alone, with shadows under his eyes too deep for his age. "You lost?" she asked, not unkindly. Eli swallowed hard and pulled out the letter, the photograph, the locket. "My sister died 2 years ago," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "But she wrote this after her funeral." Mara's fingers stilled. Slowly, she took the note, her eyes scanning the words. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Tell me everything." Hours later, Mara had filled 3 notebooks with details. Lily's sudden illness, the rushed funeral, the way the doctors had refused to let the family see her body. "They said it was contagious," Eli murmured, staring at his hands. "But she wasn't sick. She was fine until that night." Mara's pen tapped against the desk. "And the fresh dirt on the grave?" Eli's stomach twisted. "It's empty. Or someone put something there later." Mara exhaled sharply, then reached into her desk drawer, pulling out a faded file. Inside were newspaper clippings, other kids, other towns, all with eerily similar stories. "You're not the first," she said quietly. "There's a pattern. Kids who die under weird circumstances, families pressured to bury them fast, graves that get dug up later." She met Eli's gaze. "Someone's hiding something. And if your sister's alive, we're going to find her." The night air was thick with the scent of rain as Eli and Mara crouched behind the crumbling stone wall of the abandoned Whitmore Institute, a sprawling complex on the outskirts of town that had been shut down years ago, officially for structural hazards, though Mara's research suggested otherwise. The file she'd shown him was filled with whispers of experiments, of children taken under the guise of medical trials, their families paid off or threatened into silence. Eli's hands were clammy, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure it would give them away. This was insane. Breaking into a government facility, if that's what this really was, could get them arrested. Or worse. But the alternative was unthinkable. Walking away, pretending Lily was gone forever when every instinct in his body screamed that she was out there, waiting. Mara nudged him, pointing to a side entrance where the chain-link fence had been cut and hastily repaired. "That's our way in," she whispered, "but once we're inside, we stick together. No heroics." Eli nodded, though the fear in his chest was a living thing, clawing at his ribs. They slipped through the gap, the darkness swallowing them whole. The building loomed ahead, its broken windows like empty eyes watching their every move. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and something else, a sharp chemical smell that made Eli's nose wrinkle. Mara flicked on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom to reveal peeling walls and overturned furniture. But then, footsteps, distant but unmistakable. They froze. A door creaked open somewhere deep in the building, followed by the murmur of voices. Eli's blood turned to ice. They weren't alone. Mara grabbed his arm, pulling him behind a rusted filing cabinet just as a beam of light swept past. "Subject 047's vitals are stable, but the memory suppression isn't holding," a man's voice said, clipped and clinical. "We may need to reset her." Her. Eli's breath caught. Could it be? He risked a glance around the cabinet, catching a glimpse of 2 figures in lab coats disappearing down a hallway. Mara's grip tightened. "We follow them," she mouthed. Every step felt like walking toward a nightmare, but Eli forced himself forward, his pulse a frantic drumbeat in his ears. At the end of the hall, a heavy door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of bright light spilling out. The voices were clearer now. "Can't keep doing this. She's remembering. If the family finds out..." Then a sound that stopped Eli's heart. Soft, familiar hum. The tune Lily used to sing to herself when she thought no one was listening. The hum curled through the air like a fragile thread of memory, pulling Eli forward before he could think, before Mara could stop him. He pushed the door open wider, the sterile white light of the room blinding him for a split second. When his vision cleared, his knees nearly gave out. There, strapped to a chair with wires snaking from her temples to a humming machine, was Lily. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but it was her, alive. Her eyes, glazed and unfocused, flickered toward the door, and for a heartbeat, Eli thought she saw him, really saw him, before her expression went blank again like a screen wiped clean. One of the men in lab coats sighed, adjusting a dial on the machine. Another regression. We'll have to increase the dosage. The other man rubbed his temples, exhaustion lining his face. How much longer can we keep this up? She's fighting it harder every time. Eli didn't remember moving, but suddenly he was running, his sneakers slapping against the linoleum floor, his voice ripping out of his throat in a raw scream. "Lily!" Before Mara tackled him from behind, clapping a hand over his mouth. They crashed behind a cart of medical supplies, the clatter muffling their presence. The men spun toward the noise, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" one hissed. For a terrifying moment, the room was silent except for the steady beep of the machines. Then Lily's voice, small and broken, cut through the tension. "Eli?" The name was barely a whisper, but it sent a shock through the room. The men exchanged panicked glances. That's impossible. She shouldn't remember names. The taller one lunged for the machine, fingers flying over the controls. "Initiate full suppression. Now." A high-pitched whine filled the air as the machine powered up, Lily's body seizing against the restraints. Eli thrashed in Mara's grip, tears streaming down his face. He couldn't watch this. Couldn't lose her again? Mara's breath was hot and frantic in his ear. "We need to go. Now." But then, Lily's hand twitched, her fingers curling into a weak fist. And then, slowly, deliberately, she extended her pinky, just like she used to when they made promises as kids. "Pinky swear, Eli. Forever." The machine beeped erratically, the men shouting as alarms blared. "She's overriding the system. How is she?" Lily's head lifted, her eyes locking onto Eli's hiding place with terrifying clarity. And then she smiled. The alarms wailed like a chorus of ghosts, their shrill screams bouncing off the sterile walls as the machine beside Lily sparked. And smoked, its circuits overloading under the sheer force of her resistance. The men in lab coats scrambled, their voices rising in panic. "Shut it down, pull the primary fuse." But it was too late. The restraints around Lily's wrists clicked open with a mechanical sigh, as if the machine itself had given up trying to contain her. She swayed as she stood, her legs unsteady from years of confinement, but her grip on the edge of the chair was white-knuckled with determination. Eli stopped breathing. This wasn't the sister he remembered, the one who'd braided his hair when he pretended to be a pirate, who'd sung him to sleep after nightmares. This Lily was something sharper, fiercer, her eyes burning with a quiet, terrifying rage. Then she spoke, her voice hoarse from disuse but achingly familiar. "You shouldn't have come here, Eli." The words were a warning, but they shattered him anyway. Mara's grip on his arm tightened, her journalist's instincts screaming that they were seconds away from being caught. But Eli couldn't move. Couldn't look away. "Lily," he choked out, "we're taking you home." A flicker of pain crossed her face before she schooled it back into stillness. "I can't go home," she whispered. "Not yet." Behind her, one of the men lunged for a red emergency button on the wall. Lily moved faster, a blur of thin limbs and desperation, yanking a syringe from the cart and jamming it into his neck. He crumpled without a sound. The other man backed away, hands raised. "You don't understand what you're doing, subject. EO 47. The program," Lily's laugh was hollow. "I remember everything now." The lights above them flickered, then died, plunging the room into darkness save for the eerie glow of the machine's dying screens. In the shadows, Lily's outline seemed to waver, like a mirage. "They tried to erase me," she said, her voice barely audible over the distant sound of slamming doors, reinforcements coming. "But they couldn't. Not completely. Because of you, Eli. You kept coming to the grave. You remembered me." A single tear cut through the grime on her cheek. "That's why they're scared. They can't unmake what love won't let go of." Mara yanked Eli backward as bootsteps thundered down the hall. "We have to go now," she hissed. Lily nodded, shoving a crumpled map into Eli's hands, a labyrinth of tunnels beneath the Institute. "Follow the red lines," she said. "It leads to the old generator room. There's a way out." Eli's vision blurred. "I'm not leaving without you." Lily's smile was sad. "You never did." Then she turned toward the door, her spine straightening like a soldier's. "I'll hold them off. Run. And Eli?" Her voice broke. "Tell Mom and Dad I'm sorry." The door burst open. The world exploded into chaos. Shouting men in black uniforms, the crackle of radios, the blinding sweep of flashlight beams cutting through the dark. Mara dragged Eli backward, her nails digging into his wrist as she pulled him toward a service door half hidden behind a toppled gurney. He fought her, his eyes locked on Lily as she stood silhouetted against the storm of movement, her arms spread wide as if to embrace the violence rushing toward her. One of the men raised a weapon, not a gun, but something sleek and metallic that hissed like a snake, and Eli screamed, raw and wordless, as a dart buried itself in Lily's shoulder. She didn't cry out, didn't fall, just turned her head, slowly, her gaze finding Eli's one last time, her lips forming two silent words. "Go. Now." Then the world tilted as Mara tackled him through the doorway, the heavy metal door slamming shut behind them with a finality that echoed like a coffin lid. The tunnels were a nightmare of flickering lights and dripping pipes, the map Lily had given them barely legible in Mara's shaking hands. Eli ran blindly, his lungs burning, his mind replaying that last look in Lily's eyes. Not fear, but resolve, like she'd known this moment would come and had chosen it anyway. They stumbled into the generator room, its rusted turbines long dead, and found the exit just as Lily had promised, a grate leading to the storm drains. Mara pried it open with a crowbar from her bag, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "We'll come back for her," she panted, "with police, with proof." But even as she said it, the distant sound of boots on metal stairs told them time was up. Eli hesitated, his fingers brushing the crumpled photo in his pocket, Lily smiling, alive, real, before Mara shoved him into the tunnel. They emerged. Miles away, in a creek bed on the outskirts of town, the first light of dawn staining the sky pink. The authorities would come, Mara said. They'd investigate. They'd listen. But as Eli sat on the damp grass, his clothes streaked with dirt and his hands still trembling, he knew the truth. Some secrets were too big to bury. Some loves too strong to erase. And somewhere, in the shadows between what was taken and what was remembered, Lily was still fighting. 3 days later, a plain envelope arrived at Eli's house. No return address. Inside was a single daisy petal, fresh as morning, and a note in familiar handwriting. "Pinky swear forever. Wait for me." And so he would.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.